Welcome to round 9, y'all. Hi, everybody. Welcome to round 9. Georgie. Baby. My cat is playing with a piece of tape. Jojo. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to round 9 of the Women's Grand Swiss of 2023. Today, we are going over some really cool games. I know I feel like I say that maybe every round, but the players are delivering. Like, what do you want from me? There's some really cool games, okay? So today I'm going to show y'all 5 games. It's a pretty interesting round because we have 3 players chasing the GM norm today, and they need to win their games to get that norm. Vaishali Rameshbabu, Antoaneta Stefanova, and Muzychuk are all tied for first place. And then we have some players as well that are only trailing by half a point. It's a very exciting day. We have a ton of people fighting for a GM norm, and I'll tell y'all when we get to those games of who's fighting for what. But the first game I want to show you is between Vaishali Rameshbabu and Antoaneta Stefanova, who is currently 24-24, and Vaishali is 24-48, according to the chess 24 ratings online, but I think she's actually only 12 points away from hitting 2,500. So this is a very important game for her, and it's on board 1. Both of these players are tied, and let's see what happens. All right, so we have Antoaneta with the white pieces and Vaishali with the black pieces. She starts us off with, we get d4, and now we get knight f6, knight f3, e6, g3, and now b5. I was shook by this. If she plays something else, maybe we go into a Catalan, if d5, but she plays b5, and I was like, I don't know what's going on from this game. It's move 3, and I've never seen b5 before, but this is actually prep, so okay. a4, b4, c4, en passant, and now d5. Bishop g2, and now maybe the c-pawn could be a little bit weak for white, but it's fine. Bishop a6, we get knight b to d7, after knight e5, knight c6, queen c8, and now bishop a3, we get a trade of bishops, and now queen b7, attacking the knight, knight goes to b4, and now c5, takes, and now rook b1, queen d7, and knight takes a6, and basically, Antoaneta traded off a knight that moved a ton, so she lost a lot of tempi, in my opinion. The knight traveled from here to, where did it go? Here to here, and then traded itself off. So, bit of a journey for the knight, but okay. We get knight takes back, c4, castles, c takes d5, knight takes e4, striking the center, queen e7, and knight b5. And this is move 19, and Antoaneta had 12 minutes left on her clock. So she spent a ton of time in the opening, and now she's going to be definitely getting into time trouble because, as a reminder, this is a game in 90 minutes for the first 40 moves. Once the players hit move 40, they get an extra 30 minutes, but you only have 90 minutes for the first 40 moves. So she has to hit move 40 to be able to get that extra bonus. Also, it is a 30-second bonus from move 1, but okay. Knight b6, a5, attacking the knight, knight to c4, attacking the pawn, and now queen e2, and white's king has still not castled, which is kind of insane, but queen e2 makes a lot of sense, and then rook to c8. If here she plays knight takes a5, then after queen a2, queen d8, trying to defend the knight, rook a1, knight to b4 attacking the queen, it can get a little tricky because if you take the knight, black is going to have knight to c2 check, king e2, and then we'll be able to go, 2 minor pieces, bishop and knight for rook and pawn. So it would get a little bit tricky, and we would see what happens, especially with the white king out here. This doesn't look super safe, especially with all of these heavy pieces on the board. But we don't see her play knight takes a5. Instead, Vaishali opts for rook a to c8, castles, rook c5, rook f to c1, rook f to c8, and we see some power on the c file. Queen a2, h5, bishop f1, attacking the knight, knight moves out of the way, and now queen to a3, knight to f3 check, king slides up, knight to d2, trying to fork the pieces, but we get rook takes, rook takes, and rook d1. Knight obviously takes the pawn. Queen to f3, and we get rook e5, queen f4, f6 defending the rook, knight to d4, queen b7, knight to f3 attacking the rook, and rook takes a5. And both players here had less than a minute basically, and they were just playing off of increment, and this is move 33. So they still have a bunch of moves to make. Huge time like scramble, huge. So we get rook d8 check, and now king slides up, bishop takes, rook b8, queen d5, and all of these moves had to be made very fast. Rook b4, knight g5, h4 attacking the knight. We get a trade of queens and knights, and now Vaishali is just up 2 pawns. 2 clear pawns, and she's able to convert this endgame. Both players have hit move 40, but it's too late now. Vaishali is just going to be able to win this game and march her pawn to the end of the board, trade off some pawns that are in her favor, and then eventually she was able to clutch the win. In this position, Antoaneta resigned, and Vaishali came out as the winner against the former world champion. Very nice win for her. I'm very happy for her. This is a huge win for her. She is now 7 out of 9, and it's looking good for her candidate hopes, as well as her hopes to be able to cross 2,500. So congratulations to Vaishali. This was a beautiful game. She honestly just did much better in the time scramble than Antoaneta, so she got the win. All right, this game is on board 2. This is between international master Leia Garifullina, who is 2402, versus Anna Muzychuk, who is tied for first. She is a grandmaster, 2510, and Leia is actually trying to get her GM norm. If she wins this game, she gets the GM norm. So huge stakes for her. Anna has like literally no stakes in this game. She is already qualified for the candidates, but we'll see what happens. Okay, she still wants to win some money, and so she's gonna play her hardest. We get e4, e5, and we get a Roy Lopez, as is the style of this tournament, it seems. And we get b5, bishop backs up. We get d6, a3, knight a5, bishop backs up. She does not want to trade that light scored bishop. c5, knight c3, bishop e6, and we get this position we get a trade of a couple minor pieces, and we get this position where it's a little awkward on how white is going to find a plan. She would love to be able to play d4, but she just can't because it's just controlled so much by black. So she doesn't get that break. And so after knight to g4, we get queen f4, offering a trade of queens. She says no thanks. Knight e3, rook f to d8, queen to e2, h5, and g3, attacking the queen. And it's just pretty difficult for how white is going to find a breakthrough. We get knight e7, bishop c4, h4 finally, queen g4, and now we get d5 attacking the bishop. Bishop slides out of the way, b takes, and now rook h8, rook f1, rook h5, and king g2. The threat here is basically she's threatening to play this. And if she takes this pawn, oh no, sorry, you actually just lost your queen. So she's kind of like begging her to take that pawn in this position, but she just wouldn't have to. She could just play like queen to f3 and get a queen trade. But we don't see rook g5. Instead, we see rook b to h8, just doubling up. It makes a lot of sense. Rook h1, rook goes to d8, rook a to d1, and we get a shuffling of the pieces, and eventually some pawn pushes and trying to open up lines, and we get a ton of trades in the middle, and then eventually it's just a trade of the minor pieces. Both players have hit move 40, and at this point, honestly, it's just hard for white to be able to advance her king up the board. There's just not a lot of way for her to make progress. So even though she's able to win an extra pawn, she's not able to actually make any progress. She tries. Leia puts all of her hopes and dreams on trying to play f4, but Anna does a very good job of defending. And eventually this game goes into a very long game. This is move 70. The players, I'm just going to keep showing you. Honestly, Muzychuk had a great defense, and there was really no way for white to make progress. And eventually the game ended in a draw. They played this out until they had minutes on the clock. it was a very long game. This is 84 moves, and eventually Garofalina offered her hand, and it was a draw. And this was the game. So sadly, Garofalina does not get her GM norm, and Anna holds it down with a half a point. I'm just kidding. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my destiny to live a life of da-da-da? Ba-ba-ba-ba. Okay, enough. The game. All right. This game, another GM norm that Sophie Millier is trying to get. She's an international master, 2391, and she is facing Grandmaster Tan Zhongyi, who is 2517. Sophie plays e4. We get c5, a Sicilian, and now we get an Alapin Sicilian. Also a trendy opening in this tournament. Knight f6, e5 attacking the knight. Knight goes to d5, d4 striking the center. We get a trade of pawns, and now d6 attacking the e-pawn. We get bishop c4, d takes, bishop e7. I really love this pawn, honestly, here. I think it's great. Castles, queen e2, and now bishop d7, knight b to d2, bishop c6, knight e4, knight d7, and this looks a little complicated. We get bishop d3 backing up. This is actually a mistake. Queen c7 attacking this pawn, and it's not clear how you're supposed to save this pawn. She plays knight e to g5, and it's not a great move. It's not clear how she's supposed to save this. I think here she's supposed to play like knight g3 instead, but she plays knight e to g5, and after h6, she plays knight h7. And this is a very ambitious move. She doesn't want to play knight to h3, because if she has to play that, it's just kind of showing that like your plan didn't work. And she doesn't want to have to back up. She wants to keep marching forward with her attack. If here instead, here she wants to play eventually queen to e4, but she can't play it yet, because if she plays queen to e4, then after knight 5 to f6, there's a double attack on the queen, and the knight defends mate, which is why she would play queen e4 in the first place, is to try and mate the king, but it wouldn't work. So I think she saw here like, dang, that's not gonna work. So she plays knight h7, and then after rook f to d8, we get bishop to b1, basically saying I'm gonna set up a battery on right here on either, actually probably here on d3, getting ready to stare at the king. She doesn't want to play here, obviously, because then the knight can just move out of the way and the same problems as earlier. And so queen b6, a4, basically this is just stopping the skewer that was going to come, and maybe also is going to let the rook out, not here, let the rook out this way. And so we get g6, queen d2, threatening the h-pawn, knight to f8. She's like, oh, thank you for letting me trade my horrible knight that I thought was going to get trapped. Bishop takes, defending the pawn, queen e2, queen b4, and queen e4. After rook a to c8, no trade of queens, knight d4, and bishop e8. And black has a very nice position. Bishop e3, queen takes, and Tan Zhongyi just won a pawn. Rook a2. Queen moves out of the way. Bishop d2 attacking the queen. Knight blocks. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Knight to b5. Rook c4 attacking the queen. Queen takes on b7. Bishop c6. Queen a6. And this is actually like literally completely dominating for black. She has such a nice position. All of her pieces are doing something, whereas white's pieces are kind of a little bit uncoordinated. Bishop takes g2, king takes, rook g4 check, oh, king h1, queen c4 attacking the rook. She has to basically sacrifice her knight here, because how are you gonna get out of this? How are you gonna defend? You cannot. If you play like something like this, like, oh, let me move my rook out of the way. Oh no, rook takes g1, king takes g1, and rook d1 check. And after king g2, she would have queen g4 mate. And so this doesn't work very well. And she's like, dang, how am I going to defend my rook? She has to play knight c7. And after queen takes c7, she's just up a clear pawn, because she had sacked her bishop over here, if you remember, on g2. And now queen e2, queen c6 check, f3, and now rook takes a4, rook takes, queen takes, rook g1, and the a pawn should be able to win the game. We get bishop c5, and I'll show y'all the rest of the game. Tan Zhengyi plays a very nice game in being able to convert this into a win. And eventually, after we get a couple trades, she's just up so many pawns, and this ended up being a win for her, a great win for her. She stayed calm. She converted when she needed to. She played some very nice moves, and the game ended up being a win for her. And she goes back to, I believe, being now 6.5 out of 9, which is very nice. This is the position where white resigned, and Tan Zhengyi was able to clutch out the win. She is now back in the running for the candidates, and she has 6.5 out of 9. So she is only a half a point behind Vaishali, who is with 7. And let's see what happens in our next game. We have another game. This game is between international master Bibisara Asabeva, who is 2469, versus international master Batiag Mungontul, who is 2366. She is also chasing her GM norm. If she wins this game, she gets a GM norm. So this is a very important game for her. We see Bibisara start us off with d4. We get d5, c4, c6, knight to f3, knight to f6. We have a queen's gambit. Declined. We get d takes, bishop takes, b5, bishop backs up, bishop to b7, castles a6, e4, taking a hold of the center, why not? And also opening up the dark squared bishop, c5, d5, queen to c7, and now queen to e2, bishop d6, aiming at the h2 square. It's still defended, so it's okay. Rook e1, knight e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, f4, and this was a pretty cool trick because here if she takes, it's actually really nice for white because of the very nice move b5. After b5, if bishop takes, knight takes, and everything is under fire. She wouldn't have to go about it this way. Here she could, I think, just play bishop takes b5 check actually, and then after, if you take like this, she would play queen takes b5, and this would be just very nice for white. Especially because after, say, like king f8, you would play just bishop takes f4, and after queen takes, you get to play queen takes b7, and this would be really nice, and she would just be up a pawn. So this would be a way of going about it. But also e4 is really nice, just blowing up the center. Or not e4, e5. And so we don't see this, though. Instead, we see her not take the pawn. Instead, she plays bishop d4, which is much better. And now after king h1, h5, d takes e6, f takes e5, knight g4, and the pieces are coming in. Look at these very strong bishops. And also the knight is placed very nicely. Bishop g6 check, king d8, rook d1, king slides over, and the king is just walking all around. Rook takes d4, c takes, knight e4, and she basically sacrifices the exchange. And I love this. King b8, just walking the king over very calmly. Knight d6, and that knight is very nice. Bishop d5, h3, and this game gets insane, y'all, okay? d3, bishop takes d3, queen c5, and she's basically threatening to play queen to f2, and the queen would be poisoned if, say she plays like a normal move, like something like this. She would just play queen to f2, and if you take, then sorry, you're actually going to lose a piece. Whoopsies. So she can't play that. And then back here, if she plays here, h takes, because the knight is hanging, right? Oh, no, sorry, you're actually going to get mated in two, because you would have to just sack here, and this would be mate. And so can't take the knight. And so she plays bishop to c2. We get rook a7, bishop to b3, and this is a very, very sharp position. Rook c7, bishop d2, and g6. And black had roughly 2 minutes here. It's moved 28. Very stressful position for her, but she is putting up a lot of threats. I love it. Bishop a5 attacking the rook. Rook moves out of the way. Bishop takes, queen takes, and a4. Here, if you take the knight, it's the same type of idea of after h takes, you would play king to g1, and now, oh no, queen d4. Where are you going to go if you block? Oh, sorry. And this would be very sad. She would have to play this and lose her queen. So it's a very huge threat. She has to be very careful. She cannot take that knight. It's so tricky. Like, especially like you just really want to take that knight. That knight's been hanging for the past, like, I don't even know, 10 moves and she can't take it. A4, trying to open up the queen side. I love that. B takes, and she's like, actually, no, you're not going to open up the file. Bishop C3, queen C5, rook takes, queen to F2, and now she's actually able to trade this way because the bishop has left, and there's no fork like earlier. King to H2, knight to D3, rook D4, knight C1, rook B4 check, king slides over, rook B7, infiltrating the 7th rank, knight E2, attacking the bishop, and now rook E7. She trades the bishop, she takes a pawn here, and then eventually the players are able to turn this into a draw, and Bibisara is able to hold this position even though she is down the exchange. She has the pawns to make up for it, and she has compensation, and the players took a draw here. So sadly, Munguntul does not get her norm. Very sad for her. But the game ended up being in a draw. Right, this game is between Alexandra Goryachkina, who is a grandmaster. She is 25-58, also the top seed in this tournament, versus international master Minerva, who is 23-99. And I wanted to start this game like halfway through because the beginning is very normal. It's a Queen's Gambit declined. But this is where it starts to get interesting. Queen e5 is played by Alexandra is with the white pieces. We get queen takes a3, and now f5. Knight d7 attacking the queen. Queen slides out of the way, and now e5 and f6. f6 looks very nice. You're basically just threatening mate on g7. She obviously takes the pawn, and this is where Minerva actually just wins a pawn, because after knight f5, you're threatening mate again. However, g6, bishop to c2, rook e8, queen to g5, knight h5, and after a bit of repositioning of her pieces after they keep getting attacked, after knight e3, bishop c6, h4, h5, queen slides out of the way, rook b to d8, attacking the queen again, bishop b3 check, king g7, and queen c2, queen c5, and bishop a4. And basically, white just wants to trade off the queen and the bishop after bishop a4 and try to trade off the c and a pawns and try and hold the 4 versus 3 on the king side. We get rook to e7, a trade of the bishop. She's very happy. g3, knight d3, attacking the rook. Rook slides over. Rook slides over. A lot of power on the d file. c4, rook d4, queen a2, rook a to d7, and queen a3. And both players just hit move 40. There's a ton of pressure on the d file. Rook a1, and after queen to c6, rook to b1, rook a to b1 specifically, queen to f3, and black's pieces are coming in. Rook d2, and knight takes f2. So nice, because after rook takes, rook to d1, and the only way to stop yourself from getting mated is to play either, if you play, say, rook takes here, you are going to have to play this and give up your queen. And this is what she had to do, but she does it in a different order. She takes with the knight first, and she loses her queen. And technically, it's rook and knight for queen and 2 pawns. So it's technically only a +3 material advantage, but that's kind of huge. And so king to h2, e4, rook f to b2, e3, c5, queen takes, and after rook e2, queen c4, and Goryachkina resigned. And Minerva takes down Alexandra Goryachkina. I just wanted to show you all the end of this game. I thought it was very interesting in that she was just trying to kind of trade down into like a game where she was maybe just down a pawn, and then the tactics were flowing, and Minerva was the one who came out with the win. Now for our results of today. Y'all saw the top 5 games. We had some decisive results, some draws. Sadly, some of our GM norm chasers did not get those GM norms today. It's not saying that it's impossible to get them, but it wasn't today. We also saw Corey Desi beat Marcela Fromsky. Both of these players were with 5 points. These were the rest of the results. Pause if you want to see any player specific and how they did. And then going to the standings, ooh, Vaishali with clear first. I'm so excited for her. This is just like so amazing. I'm so happy for her. I really hope that she gets that candidate spot. I'm really rooting for her. She's had an amazing tournament so far. We have 2 players with 6.5, Anna Muzychuk and Tanzhonyi. Tanzhonyi creeping back up. She was creeping back up. She was just trailing behind by half a point, and now she's still trailing behind by half a point, but at least she's still in the running, especially because Anna Muzychuk is already qualified for the candidates. So she kind of does not count in terms of like getting those top 2 spots. And so, but she does in the standings in terms of like who's getting paired with who. So that is important in that regard. We have a ton of players with 6 points. And then these are the rest of our standings. And we shall see what happens tomorrow, y'all. Tomorrow is round 10. We only have 2 rounds left. We are in the home stretch. Only 2 rounds left. We shall see what happens. These are the pairings for tomorrow. I'm very excited to see this game. Vaishali versus Tanzhonyi. We have Anna Muzychuk versus Corey Desi. It's going to be a good day. I'm very excited to see what happens. And I will see y'all tomorrow for round 10 of the Women's Grand Swiss. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed the recap. Bye.